Hey, welcome everybody to the virtual town hall hosted by the Champs Mail Mentoring Program. I hope everyone is doing well tonight. I need for everybody to take the link and share it out. We have a few of my brothers that are going to get on, and we're going to talk about Ahmaud Arbery, the situation that took place on February 23rd. I want everybody to understand the context of why we're doing what we're doing. We're saying that, yeah, we don't have all of the answers, but this is so close to home in dealing with our black and brown young men that we work with every single day. And there have been too many times where we had to go on and say, you know what, we're sorry for expressing ourselves, or we're sorry for looking the way that we look. It shouldn't be criminal to be black in America. And so I have a few brothers that are going to get on and that are going to share their hearts and their spirits. And so this is real time. It's not a conversation that we necessarily practice, but we do have some questions to pull this conversation a little bit further along. So with that, I want to introduce my good brother, Reverend Briscoe.
Sitting up in the trees, they hung us, but still we rose like a phoenix in the sun. See, Till still kept her cool even after they killed her son. Dr. King on the scene brought the gospel of peace. Instead of changing their hearts, they infuriated the beast. They killed him. JFK, they killed him. Bobby K, they killed him. So many thrilled to see our blood spilled. Malcolm Little stepped in, changed our slave name. Then they said, brother X, ever fighting for civil rights until he got in their sights. They maliciously took his life, then took our brothers that's white and called them in lovers. These were our true brothers. See, with us they were murdered, but now you turn on the news and you look at our culture. See, we block. I saw a brother and cops. I saw his hands go. Then I seen him.
Hey guys, make sure you're all muted.
And when he went to lay face down, I heard his hands go pop, pop. And that's when I heard them cops shot. And that's when I saw his body drop, drop. In the hood, we call that death by cop. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel Rakia, Trayvon, Ahmaud. Sometimes I feel like a childless mother. In peace. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here tonight. My name is Briscoe, and I am a Champs mentor, and I am all in.
Thank you so much for that powerful spoken word. We want to go ahead and introduce Ernest Krim III, Tony Briscoe, and Jonathan Guichet. So I would like Tony to just introduce himself first, and then we can go around.
Greetings, everybody. Again, my name is Tony Briscoe. I am a spoken word artist, motivational speaker. I'm also a minister of the cloth, and I am also a technologist. I'm also an author, and I'm grateful to be here tonight to share this space with young men and with older brothers, and just to talk about situations recent in our
Greetings, kings and queens out there. It's Mr. Ernest Krim III. I go by your favorite Black history leader, a history purpose, history to our people that we come from greatness so that we can walk forward into greatness in the future.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jonathan Gueshe. I am a senior at Kenwood Academy. My plans for next fall is to go to North Park University, where I plan on studying music education. I am a Black young male, a Black young mentee at Champ's Mentoring Program, and I appreciate Mr. Singleton for allowing me this opportunity.
Thank you, brothers. So this question is directed to Reverend Tony Briscoe. We always talk about resources, but it seems like there are plenty of resources for our people to thrive, but they are not being utilized. Almost anything can be learned for free. So what more resources do we need? And I'll pitch that to you.
Yeah, it's a great question that came in from the audience because there are resources out there. So when we think about tools in our community that our young people can use, we think about YouTube instantly, right? We think about YouTube. We think about codeacademy.org, where you can do a lot of learning for free. I think what has happened is, and I think we get to see how there's no equity, and so it's different between saying resources are available, but then having the resources to get to the resources that are available. And so, being technologists, I've talked to leaders from Pennsylvania, from Denver, from New York, all dealing with young people who don't have internet at home. And so I think so. It's great that the resources are there, but if we don't have the resources to get to the free resources, it then becomes a problem. And so, it's easy for us to say that, and it's still a great question to ask. That the other side of this is, where is the passion in our young people, and not all of them, but some of them, because a majority of them, like Jonathan, who's on us, is handling their business and taking care of business, comes from a solid home. And so I think we talk about the resources are great, but if we don't have the resources to get there, it becomes a problem. And I'll close with one of these thoughts to get somebody else in here. You can have free food that's 12 miles from me, but if I don't have a means of transportation to get to that free food, to the free resource. And I think that's a part of the issue with why we're not using some of the resources available, is because we don't have the resources to get to the resource.
Okay. Thank you so much for that response. So, Jonathan, I just recently interviewed you. Congratulations on your scholarship. I think it's just an amazing feat. It shows the dedication and hard work that you put in to make sure that this was an opportunity for you that can actually change the trajectory of your life. And so it was a privilege and honor to have you on, a few days ago. And those are the types of things that we want to go viral. But the question that I have for you, Jonathan, is, I wanted to invite just kind of like your initial reaction and thoughts on what you saw that came out in the media regarding Ahmaud. And then if you can just kind of lend yourself to living on the south side of Chicago and constantly hearing the rhetoric about black and brown boys being stigmatized as gangs, guns, violence every single day. How do you continue to put your best foot forward? Talk about your initial reaction, and then what do you do in your daily life to dispel those stereotypes?
Thank you for the question. When I originally saw the video, as a matter of fact, I was kind of hesitant to watch the video because it was almost like, of course you hear about it, but it's like, man, again, like it's so, we have so many stories of the same type of thing, and it's just like, we really have to go through this again. Like, we didn't get it the first time or the second time or the third time. Like, we really have to go through this again. So it was like, do you really want to see this again? But I had to watch it because it's it's really mind-boggling that it takes so much for people to understand what's going on. And like growing up on the South Side, like it's not completely hard to not be what people think you're supposed to be. Like it's a matter of surrounding yourself with people who of course want to see you win in any type of way, but it's more, of course, we all know it's your surroundings. And more times than not, it's really hard for especially Black young men to find good surroundings. It just is. And it's not because they make it hard for themselves or it's not their fault. It's just really hard to find some good surroundings. So that's like I was saying in the interview you had with me, that's why I thank God so much for my parents and my relationship with God and their relationship with God, because it's because of that I surround myself with the people that I surround myself with, and they surround their people with people that I would want to model myself after. So it makes the difference in your surroundings. Now it's really hard to know that it takes so much for people to seem to care, because I know oftentimes people see this and it's like we post about it and we say RIP, like we're so sad about it. But I don't think it's just enough to just care. Like we have to actively care about these things, and I don't see enough people actively caring about it. Like I can see whatever I want to see and say, oh my gosh, this breaks my heart. Like so sad. But what are you doing so that this doesn't happen again? There is enough of us to where this just shouldn't happen. There's enough of us to teach younger people like me, people younger than me. I have a younger brother and a younger sister, to teach them like it's not hard to actively care. And I think people are like, it's almost like people are scared to do even that, and that's what kills me the most. Because it's like you see what's happening, and how many times does it take for you to say to yourself, maybe there's something I can do? Because there is. Like, no matter how small or how big it is, everything matters. And people don't seem to understand that. But I think if people actually took the time and actively cared, then it would make a major difference.
Yep, totally agree. I'm going to bring in Brother Ernest Krim. Ernest, when these situations occur, it seems as if we always expect someone to do something. Most of us don't realize that we are the someone we're looking for. What are some ways we as individuals can prevent the prevalency of these situations and or the lack of justice that seems to come as a result, so that we don't always look for our idols to do what we can do ourselves?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Singleton, and thank you for inviting that young man on this call, because that was some very prophetic talking right there, and some very prophetic teaching. So thank you for that. What I would say is I look at these situations as if whenever we try to construct something, because I'm a parent, I'm a father, whenever I try to construct something without looking at the owner's manual, at the end of my construction, it would seem as if I put it together the correct way, only to find out that I did it wrong, or I may have misplaced something, or I may have put one thing in the wrong spot. Although it looks correctly, when I start to let my kids play on it, it comes crumbling down. Something's wrong with it. And I think that we are in that place, in that situation in history. I think that we begin to think that we have achieved something, technological items. We may have access to access to more material items. We may have more of us moving to different suburbs or different maybe other affluent areas of the city. So we assume that we achieved something. But when we see these things happen, or we see the violence in our community, we see the edifice fall, because I don't think that I don't think we look back far enough to what our history has taught us. And I think in these situations, we have to pick up our books, and we have to understand that there are people in the past who have fought this type of stuff, who have gone through different trials and tribulations. There was a point in time where there were thousands of us getting lynched throughout history. And there were people brave enough like Ida B. Wells who constantly stood up and constantly put pressure on people. Like I was, before we got on this call, I was reading Carter G. Woodson's The Miseducation of the Negro, and he said something so prophetic, y'all. And I had to write this down because it was so relevant. He said, there would be no lynching if it didn't start in the schoolroom. So for me, what that lets me know as a black man is these situations, to me, the end justifies the means. This situation was supposed to happen. Things have not changed in terms of how society has been engineered since the past. It's just that they're not as socially acceptable. But yet and still, we hang ourselves because we believe that we are inferior. We believe that we are not able, or we believe that we are not worthy of such great things. So if we start to study our past, study people like Ida B. Wells, in my opinion, who put out a anti-lynching crusade as a black woman in the late 1800s through the 1900s, who many people frowned on because she was so militant, who refused to get out of her seat years before Rosa Parks and Claudette Colvin sued to get justice and stood in the face of evil to say that we are not this and we refuse to be this. People like Walter White, who was so light-skinned he could have passed as white, who infiltrated the KKK to reveal these secrets to us. We have to learn from the past, y'all, because I'm telling you, the people in the past, they didn't have the same distractions. So when they woke up, it was always survival mode. So when we try to construct what we believe to be the prototypical black America for this country, we got to make sure that we don't do what I do. We got to make sure we look at the instruction manual and go step by step. What did they do in the past that worked? Because it worked back then, and guess what? We have more access now. We have avenues and mediums like this now. So whatever we do now can be that much greater.
Powerful. Absolutely incredible. I want to pitch it back to Tony Briscoe. We got about 6 minutes left in our dialogue, and then we're going to continue to move our conversation over to other panelists to get their perception and take on what they're seeing, what they believe are solutions, because oftentimes people say, you guys keep talking about the problem but not offering many solutions. But we got to be able to process this. And sometimes when you processing something that happened before, you process something that happened again, and you don't ever heal because these traumatic experiences continue to happen over and over again. But we've heard from attorney Benjamin Crump, who raises the point of two justice systems in America. What do you think he means, and how do you think America can overcome these disparities, Reverend Briscoe?
Man, I think, there's two justice systems. If Attorney Crump could be referring to, in my just solely my opinion, there is white justice and there is no justice. And no justice falls on black and brown people. And, white justice falls on white people, and that's not a racist statement. What it's saying is, and we can go back to the Reagan administration, we can go to the Clinton administration and every other administration that sought to highly impact black people in large rates of incarceration. Right. And so we look at the war on drugs and what that turned into. It turned to an onslaught. I'm listening to Dr. Carol Anderson of Emory University today, and she did a lecture back in 2018, and she talked about that literally 10% of the black population uses drugs, but we're the most incarcerated for drug use, right? When you talk about systems that are built, when we have white kids in the suburbs who get caught with cocaine and have a parent meeting, and we get black kids on the south side of Chicago who get caught with marijuana and they get arrested inside of a school and hauled out in handcuffs. That's the two justice systems he's talking about. Those are the two justice systems he's speaking of. It's not equity, right? And I'll close with this because, after our meeting last Saturday, I was in tears during the meeting, right? And so, I look at it and this is why I say white friends need to step forward. White people need to step forward. White people, you need to say something because that's what's broken in the systems. Your white silence equals white rage. And that's why we can move from police officers gunning down unarmed black men to white citizens gunning down unarmed black men because everybody's silent about it. We've marched, we've boycotted, we've protested, we've fasted, we've prayed. And we don't want it to get to a place where now we feel like we got to arm up, but there's no equity. When you have white men who can walk to a state capitol with firearms that I've never even seen in my life before and get pictures with state police inside of a building, and Black Lives Matter can show up with a sign and we get tear gas, that's two justice systems. That's a problem. So I know there's somebody out there now. Yes, there are issues that we have in the Black community and the African American community with Black on Black crime. Every community across this country is dealing with that. White on white crime, Black on Black crime, Latino on Latino crime. We're not dealing with that issue. The issue we're dealing with is with Ahmaud Arbery and him being hunted down like a dog and murdered like an animal, and the cover-up of the justice system that came from the district attorney. So yeah, Attorney Crump is absolutely right. There are two justice systems, but one equals no justice.
Powerful. Thank you for that insight. I want to pitch this over to Jonathan. You know, Jonathan, you're a young man, and the thing that I love about this conversation is that we have men from all different age groups chiming in. Young men that are in their teenage years, in their 20s, in their 30s, in their 40s, in their 50s, all chiming in tonight. So we're not coming from a slanted perspective. We are trying to engage a conversation real time that's constantly happening to young men that look like us, right? And that's all we're trying to do. We're trying to say, hey, this is ridiculous. It's out of hand. And I just want to bring in Tony's point is like, yes, we do need our allies to step up and speak out. Why? Is because you're in places of power where you can do something. Don't say, oh, I just feel sorry for them. No, give up some of your power. Put your reputation on the line. Come out here and say, you know what? I don't want to just talk about it. I want to be engaged. Why? It's because that problem is yours. That's how interconnected we are and interrelated we are. And we need all my brothers and my sisters to join us. And it's not just happening to Black men and Latino men. It's happening to Black women, right? And we speaking out against that is wrong. And I am a Christian believer. I went to a charismatic university, and I applaud the evangelical pastors who took a stand and said, you know what, this is wrong. I don't care how we slice it. Wrong is wrong. You don't take the law in your hands and the end result is a death. You can't get that back, right? So you can say, well, he shouldn't have did that. Well, if you were following protocol and justice, you would have let the law handle it, and you didn't do it. So, Jonathan, I want to hear from you because you have peers that are around your age. And I want to hear, what are some of your peers thinking about this, and what's like your conversation with some of your peers who are trying to make sense of all of this?
So an interesting thing is, and it kind of ties back to what I was previously saying, back to the people you're surrounded with. Of course, my friends are going to be people who are similarly like-minded. So the conversation we have and the conversation my brother and his friends have may be two completely different conversations. Now, the conversation I have with my friends may be the same thing I said. It's heartbreaking. We need to see something done, but like, what does that do if we just talk about it? So in that way, it's like now us ourselves are trying to have this planning process where we come up with something or come up with anything that helps, even in the smallest way, in school or whatever. Even though we're not in school, there's social media. You'll be surprised at how much stuff you will see on social media that like it wouldn't make sense to you. Like, it's like we treat each other like this. So it's when we see things like that makes us want to help more. But I know that there are certain people who have friend groups that will never have that conversation ever, and that's part of the problem. If we're a friend group and we're just talking amongst ourselves, it does nothing. But we have to be responsible enough, and we have to care for one another enough to go to another friend group that may be nothing like ours, and have that conversation with them, because otherwise it never happens. And now we have this never-ending cycle because we're silent. Like I was saying, like actively caring, it matters. We have to do something about it. Like you were saying, just like you, Mr. Singleton, I'm a Christian. The Bible says faith without works is dead. If you just believe something, or you just say something and do nothing about it, what comes of it? Nothing. It's a thought. No, nothing comes from that. So you there has to be something in place. You have to do something. It does not matter what it is, as long as it's helping somebody. Because as far as you know, that one person you help can help 3 more people. So those things are really important, and the people that I surround myself around, and the people that I call friends, we're really adamant about finding those people who won't have that conversation, and having that conversation with them so they can have it with somebody else. So I think that's just a really big thing right now for a lot of people my age, especially that are around me.
Thank you so much for sharing. We running a little bit close to time, but I want to pitch this last question to Ernest. Ernest, the Black Panthers, right? They talked about the 10-point plan for the community that addressed our needs in the 60s and 70s. If we had to come to a conclusion of what we wanted a 10-point plan to look like today, what would you think some of those issues that need to be brought to the forefront would be?
Great question. For one, that's one of those groups that I think we all need to go back and study and see how they did things, especially our brothers, rest in peace, Fred Hampton. And even on that same level, Hampton, his brother speaking about, he brought together groups, like-minded groups of different hues together, and formed the Rainbow Coalition before Jesse Jackson. He brought together the young Lord Puerto Rican group, brought together the Young Patriots, a white group, because they all dealt with this issue of class oppression, brutality in the 60s. And understand how powerful he was when he did that, y'all. He was 21 years old. This brother that's talking right now is about to go to college in that same age frame right there. It takes a village, y'all, and we all have a part to play. You don't have to be 30, 35, 40, 45. You don't have to have a degree. It starts here right now. He had the gangs form a ceasefire, y'all, in the 60s. And our brother was taken out. You understand that? So what the Black Panthers have for us, in combination with what Dr. King was preaching to me, was so powerful because it touched on all elements, and along with Malcolm X as well. So for me, I think we have to have a social component. I ain't going to go down all 10, but a social component is understanding and believing that, yo, Black kings and queens, there's nothing wrong with you. My mentor, Philippe Matthews, always says there's nothing wrong with you. Something happened to you. Understand that when these things happen, we have a propensity to say, well, shoot, what did I do wrong? Or maybe if I pulled my pants up, maybe if I wore a tie, maybe if I spoke more proper, maybe if I got that degree. Dr. King got assassinated in a shirt and tie, y'all, in a suit. You get what I'm saying? So love yourself. Love your Black self. Black is beautiful, for real. Understand, like, our culture, the way it is beautiful. It does not need to be modified. If you are in a place where it has to be, then we have to change and modify the place where you're going. Politically, we have to infiltrate this system and put people who have a like mind as us. Sometimes that'll mean Black folks who think like us. Sometimes that'll mean white and Hispanic folks that think like us, people who want to embrace all humanity. As an educator, I understand that we have a representation problem, but honestly, the bigger issue is a care and love for kids, and that can go beyond all cases. So we need people who understand that these issues, like our brother said, are something that go, these are human rights issues. Like Malcolm X said, we got to take this to the world stage. Politically, we need people in all sectors who can educate us on local politics, state politics, federal politics, and economically, I believe we need to start teaching more of our young brothers and sisters to go into entrepreneurship. You don't have to be a full-time entrepreneur if you don't want to, but understand that you have a skill set that you can profit off and teach people. When we go back to resources like our brother Briscoe was talking about, y'all, America has it, and we see it now. It's just they choose when and where they want to put the resources. So go out there and get your money, and you don't have to sell your soul to make money. You sell a product to enrich your community.
Brothers, y'all preaching. And I'm hoping the choir out there watching saying amen, and continue to chime in with these questions and comments. We have streamers on Facebook as well as YouTube, Periscope, and Twitch. So we have a combination of folks that are out there, and we want you guys to, continue to figure out, hey, how do we bring other folks into the conversation? So that way we are driving ourselves to some real sustainable long-term solutions. And again, this conversation is real-time processing. We're not saying that we have the answers, but what we are saying is we're willing to get out here and talk about what we have been internally going on. I shouldn't have to look at myself in the mirror and see the reflections of my brothers that I'm putting hashtags in front of their names. I shouldn't have to do that. Not in this time, not in this day and age where we have this great access. And so I do question some people who, again, say that they care. Like, this is a time to stop saying that you care and figure out a way to get involved. And then sometimes people say, well, I don't know what to do. Look at all these folks around. Start asking for help. We still processing this, and we a little bit further along in the journey. I'll be the first to say I don't have all of the answers. And so I'm grateful for my brothers jumping in and joining in. And we're about to bring in 3 more panelists, and they're going to share in context from their perspective on what's going on. So next we have Sterling Gilmour, Juhan Irons, and Gavin Lamb coming up next.
First of all, good evening, gentlemen. My name is Juhan Irons. I am an educator in Tulsa, Oklahoma with KIP. I apologize if you cannot see me. I'm trying to fix that right now. Thank you for having me.
How you doing? My name is most of that at Gilmour College Prep, where I've also been the head football coach for the last 12 years, and recently transitioned to take on the role as chief operating officer for mentoring. Really excited to see you guys.
Well, hello, everybody. My name is Sterling Gilmour. I am the champ mentor and flag champ photographer. I've been around champ for a long time, and I'm more humble to be part of this conversation.
All right. So I want to go ahead and open up the conversation, and I'm going to kick this off to Gavin. Gavin, as a white ally of the educational space, and you've been doing this work for so many years, over 15 years, in mentoring, coaching, et cetera, et cetera. You have a lot of experience working with black families and youth on the South Side in particular. And what's some of the things that you wish our other allies that are out there, our Caucasian brothers and sisters, what do you hope that they would know by what you know from working with our youth that they probably just don't have a clue about that you have some insight on? Can you share?
Sure. So I think the first thing is I'm very aware of how just segregated our society is. And so your average white person, I think, really doesn't interact with a lot of African Americans or Latinos or people of other races in very authentic ways. They may see them, interact with them briefly, but in terms of just genuine interaction, so I think that creates a lot of misconceptions. So the number one thing I would say is that we have way more in common than we have different. I think working in the high school environment, when you're around teenage boys all day, every day, you realize how universal so many things are about being a teenage boy. And so I think the reason I say that is the people out there, when you see a young man, he's got way more in common with your son or your son's friends or your daughter than you think he does. And so we're not as different as I think society would have us believe. I think the second thing I would say, and I know that this ruffles a lot of feathers, is that we did not earn our lifestyle as much as we'd like to think we did, and people living in poverty and living in other places didn't earn that lifestyle either. And what I mean by that is, sure, I worked hard. I did well in high school. I went to University of Notre Dame, graduated from there, worked hard, saved up, bought a house, etc. That was a relatively carved out path. So while sure I put in hard work, the system was designed for me to do that, and I did. It worked the way it was supposed to. And working in high school, I have a deep appreciation for the fact there's a lot of kids who put in the exact same or better effort. And I think the young man who was just on here is pretty good proof of that, Jonathan. I've met a lot of boys who have put in the same as me and my friends, and I know for a fact the road is not going to be nearly as smooth for them. And so the system is just designed differently, and that's the last point. A lot of what we see in America is by design. I've learned that. I've heard it said by a lot of people, and we endorse it. We allow it. We set the system up to operate this way. And so I think a lot of people don't want to confront that truth. And I think it's a vitally important thing to start to acknowledge is the city is carved up a certain way. It was intended to do that, and it is functioning the way that we have built it to function. So if we want different results, we have to start operating very differently.
Thank you so much for that perspective. Ernest Krim said, great insight, and continue to comment, continue to share this. This is a very important conversation that we're having. And again, this is real-time processing. And I believe with the work that we do every single day, it's hard for me to sit back and not use our sphere of influence to galvanize a conversation where it can reach folks everywhere, people who may be watching this or may watch this on replay, right, may decide to say, you know what, I can do something. And let me arm myself with education and do my own research on this particular situation. I want to go over to Juhan. Juhan is working with our Champs Mentoring program with Kip Tosa under the great direction of Mr. Marzette, who's the principal out there. But I do have a question that I want to ask. Wanda Cooper Jones, Arbery's mother, said, without national attention, my son's death would have been a cover-up. Without the family's efforts and the news media, do you think his death would have received the coverage it is now getting? And she basically went on to say that her son, to know Ahmaud was to love Ahmaud, adding that my baby didn't deserve death. Why do you think it's important for moms like her to share out loud what her son was like as a person? And why do you think it's important for the public to know about him besides the smear campaign that they're trying to portray to justify the murder of Ahmaud?
So what I'm hearing is I heard three different questions within that question, and let me talk about the first one. If this video hadn't come out, I don't think that there would be a national campaign to find justice for Ahmaud, and I actually think that the people that slayed him would have still been out there. The reason why is because when you look at the news, look at the outlets, look at all the different things that you were hearing, the DA working with the DA, the gentleman that shot Ahmaud was a DA investigator for 20 years in the same DA that is presiding over that county. So I don't think that it would have come out, but I am glad that it did come out because now it refocuses on the task at hand. Task at hand. Why is this happening to our black men? Why is this happening to our black women? So on and so forth. The next question I heard was why is this? Why is she trying to paint a picture, or is she painting a picture of Ahmaud? The reason why, and I believe that I read somewhere, I can't remember where I read it, but there's coded language in everything we do. There's code language in everything that we do. For instance, when you think about when an athlete is playing basketball. They say he's talented. You're a white athlete and a track, things like that. Those two different words are to symbolize different things in the mind of a consumer. What she's intentionally doing is she's setting the stage for the people in the court of the mind to determine what is necessary for how to happen. The answer unequivocally is always no. It's always no. One of the things that we have to remember is that anytime that we see this atrocity happen to Black young men, one of the first things that news media wants to do is that they want to say, well, he should have been here, he should have been there, he has this past, he has this, he did this in the past, and they want to legitimize why this young man should have been shot. So that's the second question, and for me, and I might need a little bit of clarity on the third question, but I just want to say this. For me, what this has all done is that this has really shown that we have not progressed far enough as far as African Americans, as far as Caucasians, as far as Hispanic, as far as different cultural backgrounds. We have not progressed enough to where this doesn't need to happen. One thing that I took away from this young man's death, which I'm saying this young man, he's about 10 years younger than me. That could easily be me, being a large Black man. I like to run, I like to jog, I like to lift weights. That could easily be me. One of the things that I don't want to happen, especially in the future, is we start to trivialize this death, and we don't actually take into account how this is Aubrey, a man with a bright potential, bright future, who was going for a jog, who was trying to take care of his health, and this happened in the middle of the day, and this didn't need to happen. No. The process of making sense of this, and in the process of moving forward with this, one of the things that we have to do is take inventory of what does this death make us feel? How does this make us feel? What are we willing to do in our community to make sure that this doesn't happen? What do we want to do in our community to make sure this happens? I live in Oklahoma. It's an open carry state. As a Black man, I fear for my life every day because I know that if I walk down the street and I'm not having a good day, my face is menacing, it might be a bad day for me.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I really want us to focus on, especially, is like, how can we take this and how can we bring this back to our community and let our young men know, let not only our young men of all color know, this does not need to happen. This was easily avoidable. How are we going to move forward?
That's powerful. First of all, thanks to Gavin for expressing, yourself in a way where people can understand where you are coming from. It's not like you're not doing the work. You've been doing this work for a very, very, very long time. And you have, helped, you have met, you have engaged so many different families and young men of color. And I want to go on the record to say this. Again, we're not coming on here to try to bash anybody, but we do need some answers and we need some justice to start happening much faster. So to kind of go back off what Mom was saying was the fact that had it not been for a video that was released, okay, this took place February 23rd. And it was almost a month and a half, 2 months, where we saw the video of this young man being gunned down. And now we are dealing again with the real time traumatic effects of what we are seeing. I don't know the brother, but anytime I look in the mirror, I see myself through him. And it's no other way for me to put it. So I want to thank Gavin as an ally for coming on and really sharing at a high level, just the importance of, including others in this conversation, and especially people who can really do something and speak on it and help in ways where you have resources and power where you can make some things happen. All right. Our next guest is Sterling Gilmour. I want to switch the conversation over to Sterling. What went on in your mind when you saw this, and how are you processing this right now?
Well, for me, this is more likely complicated. When I first saw this, because I was just saying like, oh wait, did this happen during a pandemic, or did it happen what? It just didn't make no sense. Then when they show on the actual date, I was like, wait a minute, why did just now just releasing in May, and that stuff should have always been dealt with. And like, it didn't make no sense. This young man was minding own business, jogging in beautiful weather, and he was shot down like a dog. And he did came no harm. He just came just for his shit, and then who he really is. But the way I see it, it's just that people look at him the wrong way. I'm like, oh my God, he must be a bad guy. We must take him down. That don't make no sense. Why? Seems like you are repeating the history what has happened from Trayvon Martin. Trayvon Martin was minding his own business. Karen had two items. Get up. No, I'm more scared what's going to happen to young man, because this young man deserves justice. But and one of my biggest, I kind of more like furious about this one. How did the person record the session did not step up? You record the session, and you could help that young man. He would be still alive this day, and his birthday just passed. I just found out his birthday just passed, and it don't make no sense, because to me, seem like you are the one. Seem like you part of their side. We don't know you on our side, or whatever. And what made you want to release it now versus you could take it to the police? There's so many things. So that's my thought. I want to share them because I was more furious and hurt. It's just like Mr. just said, we don't know him, but he like our brother. We watch out our little or big brother out, make sure they're good. If they're not good, we gotta stand up and defend our brother no matter what. Wherever they go, we go. We are brother, and we cannot break our bond. If we do, we feel like who we really are. So that's how I feel right now.
Hey, thank you so much, Sterling. That was really, really powerful. We are our brother's keeper, and I believe, like, with this whole age of people making a decision, right? Like, do I record real time, or do I actually get involved and help, right? And in this case, I believe the actual guy who videotaped it, he was like, well, I probably could have got out and helped him, and he probably still would have been alive. And so now he's saying like, hey, I don't have anything to do with it. And I don't know what's going to happen as it relates to consequences coming for that. But again, at the end of the day, you know, I think it was a blessing in disguise, because had not that video came out, we wouldn't have known about it. And I don't believe these two guys would have been arrested. So I want to pitch back over to Gavin real quick and ask Gavin, Gavin, what do you think are some practical things some of our allies can actually do to involve themselves into solutions, and not just try to say, you know, the blacks are tripping, or look at what they're doing to each other, and finding ways to kind of justify these, you know, just like broad daylight murders in the middle of the street, and say, well, these other two guys were justified. They were just using self-defense. What are some ways that you feel allies can be involved and help this situation?
Sure. I got a lot of notes. I'll try to be concise. And, man, I just want to also just kind of throw a shout-out to Sterling there. It's really an honor. I taught Sterling in 9th grade algebra many years ago, and so it's powerful to sit next to him on a panel like this and just see how he's grown up. But I think one of the things, I'll go back to where I started, is I think we have to work way harder to desegregate ourselves. One of the first, an early experience I had in my teaching career, my 5th grade teaching partner across the hall invited me to her church. And it was the first time I'd ever been in black church, right? And so it was eye-opening, and I was raised Irish Catholic, went to Catholic school my whole life. I've been in Mass an awful lot of times, and I can still tell you what the preacher talked about that day, right? But that's one of the only times I've really been invited in, and I can count them on one hand. And so I think on both sides, we have to work harder to get to know people of different backgrounds, different races, in really authentic ways, and invite one another into our lives. And, you know, I think that's the only way to build really true understanding, is to really work hard to kind of break out of our comfort zone. I think is number one. Number two, and I think we have to work a lot harder to call out hypocrisy when we see it, especially within our own Christian community. And I'm pretty sure the core message of the gospel is to love one another, and we allow the distortion of that message to a point that it's really normalized and tolerated in many parts of the country, and particularly around people who use the Bible and Christ's words to justify a lot of these ridiculous actions. And I think within that, we need to work a lot harder to demand people in leadership to take a stand. We allow a lot of people to get away with not speaking out because they don't want to upset one side or the other. And I think, you know, especially in the white community, we need to pick sides, you know, particularly on issues like this. And when things happen that are just outright wrong, we can't allow, whether it's in the Christian community, the political community, the school community, we can't allow people to remain silent. We have to ask the questions. We have to force them to take a position. And then I think, you know, more broadly, I think just seeking points of understanding and shutting up and listen to some point. You know, I think we talk about being the dominant culture. And so as a result, you know, people try to exert influence and create change on their own terms. And I think a lot of times we'd be better off if a lot of these influencers that you're talking about and powerful people showed up, asked questions, sat back and listened, instead of dictating, you know, when they issue a grant, dictating exactly how that's all to be spent, as opposed to sitting back and saying, what do y'all need? Which brings me to the last point, is I think really trying to invest more conversation right here, right now. How many people are going to show up and watch, right? It's easy in Chicago to judge a culture in the South. I've never really been to the South. I hear things, I don't understand it, but I know that we have problems right here at home in Chicago, and I know that there are organizations like Champs, like My Block, My City, My Hood, My City, that are out there doing work to create change. And so that would be my advice: is look right here. made us comfortable, we need to expand a little bit and go learn a little bit more of what's going on instead of sitting back and just observing.
Well said. And I want to thank our group of panelists for coming in and sharing your truth and speaking up and taking a stand. It's not easy to do, but it's necessary. We have to continue to do more dialogue that makes us uncomfortable if we want real change. Briscoe is coming in now. He's saying democracy requires action. 100% truth. All Christians need to speak out and take a position. So we got our last leg of panelists that are about to come up, and these brothers are going to take us home. And I just want you guys to make sure that, again, you sharing this, right, with someone who needs to hear the messages coming from, again, real time emotion from people that have been impacted one way or the other. And we have a very diverse panelist group on tonight. And so I want to thank Sterling, Juhan, and Gavin for giving your time. This next group of guys that are coming on, we got David Gathers. Of course, we got Rashad Sanders, Aaron Williams, and Christian Terry coming on. So if you guys can go ahead and introduce yourselves, that would be awesome.
My name is David Gathers. I am the founder and CEO of David A. Gathers Speaks. I am a champ mentor. I've been working with them for the past 3 years, helping to empower our young black men to become the very best they can be.
And my name is Rashad Sanders. I am in Houston, Texas. I'm an educator. I am a personal trainer. I am a yoga instructor, and I'm also an author. And I am a champs mentor and supporter from a distance. Thank you for having me.
Hey, guys, thank you for being on this very important call. By the way, we are going to do a series of these conversations. So it's going to be very important that, if we have people that either want to participate, that you reach out to the Champs Mentoring website, or you can find me and let me know. But we do want to keep this conversation going. I believe it's healthy to do. I believe it's right to do. And I want to go ahead and open up the conversation. And I'll start with Pastor Gathers here. What were your thoughts when you heard about this? And can you just tell us, how does your personal story parallel to this situation?
When I first heard about this and when I first saw the video, my initial thought was, as an African-American man, where can I go? Where can I go? White America fears me, and because they fear me, they want to incarcerate me, they want to miseducate me, and they want to kill me. All because I want my piece of the American dream. I want to obtain what they have because I want to level the playing field and want to be treated as a human being. But on the other side of that same coin, Black America, because of the narrative in which they've been fed about me, they fear me as well because I want better. I want to educate myself. I want to move out of the communities in which I've been placed in and become a better individual. So I asked myself, where can I go? Where can I run to? Where can I find peace when I'm being killed by white American and I'm also being killed by Black America? It's like a man who has no place to lay his head, no place to call home, no place to find peace. And so those were my initial thoughts when I saw the video and heard the story about Ahmaud Arbery. And you asked, how did that relate to my own personal story? Because I see this, differently, because 25 years ago, as an African American male, I took the life of an African American male. And most people want to compare the two, saying, well, why should white America care about Black lives when Black people themselves do not care about Black lives? And anytime we take the life of any human being, that is a tragedy. However, when you look at the black community and the crimes that they commit against one another, it's because you have lumped all of them in one communal space. You've taken away all the resources. You've given them the basic education possible. There's no jobs. There's no career path. There's no way out. And so you have all of them struggling and fighting for the only door to exit their community. And so if someone else is standing in front of that door, they believe that they have to take that individual's life in order to get out. So they're fighting from a survival standpoint. And it's wrong, but yet they're committing crimes against one another. However, then you have white America who is taking the lives of black men or black people because they want justice, because they want to be treated equal, because they want their piece of the American dream and the American pie. So the two crimes don't fit. One is done out of fear. The other one is done out of jealousy and ignorance and survival. And so when I committed this very crime of murder 25 years ago, I'm still haunted by that today, because the more I educate myself and the more I'm helping young black men to get off of the street corners and to get an education and to become something more than a statistic and to become something more than what society think of them, I have to be honest with them and share with them my story and how I can identify with the struggles in which they face every day, but they don't have to choose the choice of crime. They don't have to choose the path of drugs, and they don't have to choose the path of harming their very community in which they're trying to get out of.
Thank you so much, Pastor Gathers, for sharing that and sharing your personal story. I think it's really powerful to hear somebody lay it out there and, draw this whole idea of, okay, we made a mistake, but how do we recover? How do we move on? And you are the epitome of that, sir. And I really appreciate you not hiding your story and your mistake. And I truly believe that your story is freeing a lot of people and will continue to free a lot of people. And I can't wait for you to write that book. I've been waiting on that book for a long time. I want to go over to my brother, Rashad Sanders. Shadi is working in the Houston area as an educator. And I want to ask a question around, like, how do you keep our young men positively engaged as the pandemic continues and our social interactions are limited? We can't get out as much as we typically get out. And, but we still have to stay engaged mentally, and we still have to figure out a way to have some normalcy around what's been so unnormal for us. So how do you keep these brothers engaged?
That's a great question, Mr. Singleton. And honestly, it is a challenge. The community that I serve as an educator is very underprivileged. So a lot of the kids that I deal with in that neighborhood, they do not have the technology to be anything online. They have multiple siblings in the home. Their parents may not work, and if they do work from home, the parent has one device, and they need that device to do their job. So the interaction is limited with the kids, which is sad. So what I've done is just put information out there, because there will be a time when they will be able to log on and see something that I posted, see a video that I put out there. My whole objective with the young men in my community is to teach them how to be more mindful of life, mindful of every passing moment that happens in their life, mindful of this moment that happened with and how it affects them as black and brown young man. It may have happened here in this state, but it is happening all the time. And for them to be aware that you just can't do everything. You just can't do things that other kids and other races pretend things do. They have to do things with no consequence. For us as black and brown boys and men, everything we do is looked at. Even if we're doing something positive, people are looking at how what we're doing is negative. So I'm on a mission to teach people to be more present, to understand that we're in this world and this world is set out for us to fail. But how can we obtain the information, the knowledge that we need to get ahead and to stay ahead? And once we get ahead, to reach back and pull those our younger people behind us to bring them up so they can get that information as well. That's the key. That the more information we can put in front of our young men's lives, the better off they're going to be. And creating the content, having it out there so they can go back and look at it. Just like we're doing, creating this. There might not be a lot of people on here, but we've gotten together and this content will be out there forever. So people will always be able to go back and look at what we talked about this evening and what we'll talk about in the next coming weeks and months concerning this subject and any other subject matter that we discuss.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I want to go over to Christian Terry. Christian, if you can just kind of like take us into your world, right? As a young African American from the South Side of Chicago, what is it like being you? And I want you to, as a young, I think you in your young 20s, right? You 20, yep. 21, 22, something like that?
Yeah.
Yes. So give us some perspective on what is it like for you.
My perspective about this whole entire situation, it puts me in mindset of fear. I'm born and raised on the South Side of Chicago in the Auburn Gresham neighborhood, in the Woodlawn neighborhood. I definitely, I said definitely put me in a state of fear because it's just when I walk out my house sometimes I have to put on this brave, I'm a muscular guy, like I gotta make sure like nothing and also it's like when I see this video is puts me in like I keep saying it's puts me in fear because now I'm worried about getting shot by my own people. And now see that I still get shot by white people. It's like I'm not in a win-win situation. It kind of puts me in like of course, they put on their Snapchat, Instagram stories one day, but then after that, they go back to the next video coming out next week, or the news that's coming out. It was like in their mind is like our young people are not concerned about how the world visualize them in the long run. So for me, it's definitely like it's like I'm when I leave outside of my house, I'm at work 24/7. It's like I have to be this certain way to order to survive in my neighborhood, but then when I go to work, I have to be this certain way to fit in, to be looked a certain way, to be respected as a black man in America. So it's like I have to constantly be on the lookout. But but people that look a lot lighter than me, they don't have to do that, And so it definitely puts me in a position of, concern. I'm very hurt. I'm just tired of this constantly keep happening. But definitely I'm just concerned about the future for my youth, the youth.
Thank you for sharing. I definitely think that
you paint the picture as close to the situation as anybody on the panel tonight, and I do believe that helping you guys, develop your leadership and giving you the tools, that's our responsibility as a current generation who's gone before our youth and have gotten college degrees and have careers. And essentially, this is why CHAMP's program exists. And for those of you who don't know, Christian was one of the very first, if not the first, CHAMP's mentee many years ago. And if I were to look at him the way our counterparts looked at him, I don't think he'd be sitting here today. But because we were willing to take a bet on him and say, you know what, it's time to invest in the ones that people have crossed off. And as he alluded to, like his stature, because he's a bigger guy, people can look at a person like Christian and say, oh, he's a criminal. Where he talks about being on an elevator and the lady clutches her purse a little bit tighter and moves a little bit away from him. That is a signal that your skin color, I'm afraid of. I'm fearful of you, and I don't know you. I haven't had a conversation with you. And no matter how we dress it up, if we in a suit and tie, which he typically is in, it don't really matter anymore. And so we have to figure out a way where we can have some real reconciliation in a way where, people are learning the gift of exchange, where we're learning from one another, we're having conversations, and we're not afraid of a person because of their skin color or their stature. I want to go over to Brother Aaron Williams. Thank you for joining. Aaron is newly working with the Chicago Police Department. And congratulations on all your hard work there. And so, his views are not represented of the Chicago Police Department. He's going to speak from his own viewpoint. But I do want to bring a question up regarding the death of Ahmaud. And this outcry has gone public because of the video, obviously, that came out, which shows the actual shooting. And then a couple days later, they released another video with him in a house that was being built. So what difference might this make in the case? And how about when it's in the public's eye, where people are now watching to see what this situation will turn out to be? So, of course, these guys have been charged, but no conviction has been made. So what is your opinion on that?
Yeah, thank you for having me. Honestly, this video impacts the country in a big way for two big reasons, right? Dealing with the jury trial, being unbiased, and not having prior information before actually conducting the trial. That's important because this video is viewed all over the country. And with them showing a video of this young man going into a house and they're trying to put a stain on this young man or trying to say that he was doing some type of criminal activity. The point of what I'm saying is I think people just, and especially the family, just wants this young man to have a fair trial. And so it's going to put a big, it's going to cause the jury to make some big decisions because the reality is this has been shown all over America. And then the second question, can you repeat that for me?
Yeah. So let me get back here. So what's the difference like in knowing that this video is out and it's in the public's eye, that everybody's watching? How do you think that the case will go now that it's out there and we've seen it and we're waiting to see if the conviction will be made with these two guys who shot and killed them?
How do I think it will go? I think first we need to realize that when they're at trial, the law is going to come into place, and they're going to bring up a couple things about this case, right? Which is point one, was in Georgia, they have citizens arrest like most states do, where if you see a crime, you can actually arrest a person for it. So they're trying to say that this young man was committing a crime and then he started jogging down the street. That is going to be major. So I pray that people take their emotions out of this case. And I know it's hard, you know, it might sound very tough for me to say, but the reality is that it's a possibility that these guys can get off for multiple reasons. If they're saying that this guy was breaking and entering into a house, and we saw that, and so we tried to commit a citizen's arrest, and then he reached for my gun, and we had to defend ourselves. The reality of it is that could happen. That's possibly going to be the defense in the courtroom setting. So, you know, how do I think it's going to go? I don't know. To be honest, I genuinely don't know, and I want the world to know that this case is not going to be as black and white as, you know, some people might think it is.
Thank you so much for that insight. And you know, that's what it's becoming. It's like we get initial shock because our emotions are like, man, we need justice and we need it now. And I'm still saying we need justice and we need it now. I want to be very clear about that. But in the judicial system, there are a lot of factors that come with convictions. And, you know, they look at so many different aspects. But my thing is, at the end of the day, a mom don't have her son. And we tired of losing our sons. At the end of the day, I don't care how you slice it. At the end of the day, wrong is wrong. And I want to go back to Shadi and ask a question for Rashad. And the question for you, my brother, is do you think in your mind, like, given the situation and the curiosity of black men, you know, and I'm saying that to say like what Christian has mentioned, when he is going certain places, or when I go certain places, or when you go certain places, or when all the brothers that have been on here go certain places, we get a couple eyes on us. I go into a store, they watching me a little bit closer. Why do you think our skin color is equivalent to being criminal?
We can't hear you, bro.
That's a good question, Vondale. And honestly, African American men, black people as a whole, we are the most feared and most powerful race on the planet. And because of that, we've always been under attack. Anything a black man or woman puts their hands to, it succeeds. If we get the knowledge about something and we apply ourselves, we're successful. And there are races of people out there that do not want us to be successful, nor have they wanted us to be successful for years. And it's just the state of the world that we live in. The oppression against black people, it isn't going anywhere. And we have to understand that. The thing is, how can we make ourselves better? How can we educate ourselves more with the laws? And like you said, like Christian said, like you said, I can't go anywhere without getting strange looks. I'm a bald head, athletic looking African-American man. And regardless of where I go, if there's not a lot of people that look like me, there's going to be some stares. Even though I'm not going to do anything criminal, but I am aware of that fact, that is how I am viewed. So I pay close attention to where I go, when I go, and who's at the place that I'm going to ensure that I'm looked at in a way that I'm just a law-abiding citizen and I'm coming to get my groceries or coming to pick up my clothes from the cleaners or whatever that task may be for the day. So we just have to understand that we're going to be viewed like that. And how do we process that? How can we put ourselves in a situation to where we're never being looked at as doing something that's mischievous? And like Aaron just said, they're pulling up a video from Ahmaud going into a house that's being built. There was nothing in the house. He was curious about what it may look like inside. When I was younger, I used to do that in neighborhoods, seeing new houses built. I wanted to see what it looked like inside. Nothing in there to take. Just my curiosity was sparked, and I wanted to go in and see what it looked like. That is the exact same thing that this young man did while he was on his job. Was he right to do that? No, he was not right to do that. That was not his property. But he did not commit a crime by peeking his head in the house to see what it looked like, and then to be tracked down by two men that didn't even live or own the property that Ahmaud had stepped into. So we have to be aware as black men and teach our young black boys that we're always going to be looked at as wrong because we're feared because of the power that we possess. And when we as a people understand how powerful that we are and we come together as one, then the changes that need to be made in this country will be made when we come together as one and realize that we've had the power the whole time instead of relinquishing it to the people that we believe don't have our best interests at heart.
Hey, that's real. And I want to go over to Gathers, and I want him to kind of close this out. But as I mentioned earlier, we're going to continue to have these conversations because we have to be able to have a healthy, real-time outlet where we're dialoguing, just trying to figure out, why is this constantly happening? And so quite naturally, a lot of the young men that we've been working with are angered. And I want to go to
Pastor Gathers and ask Pastor
Gathers if he would just give us an opportunity
to kind of just share out,
what can we do with this anger that we have experienced?
And so us being angry is a natural emotion. And us being angry is not a problem. In fact, the Bible has a scripture that says, anger, but sin not. So you have a right to express your emotion. The problem comes in when we don't choose to use our anger in the proper manner. When we choose to take our anger and begin to fight in an improper manner. That's when the problems and the issues come in. And so my advice to young black men who have this rage, who have this anger, who have all of these emotions boiling up on the inside of them, to take all of that and really sit down with it and process it in the appropriate way. So what would I tell a young man? The first thing I would tell him is be aware of the consequences of our actions because of anger. If I would have known 25 years ago of my anger would lead to 10 years in prison, I made that decision. If I would have known that anger was going to prevent me from my daughter next years, I would have made that decision. If I knew that my anger was going to place me in an 8x6 cell where I was given 3 meals and the barely enough to feed a 5-year-old child, I would make decisions that and so you have to sit down at your anger and think about the consequences of your actions. So I would tell him, choose your words when you're not aware. Learn how to dialogue with the individual that you're angry with. Learn to sit down and have a and communicate why you feel the way that you feel, with the hope and an opportunity that the situation between you and that individual will change. Because the moment you begin to use a weapon to resolve your anger, you put yourself in position to go to prison. You put yourself in position to even lose your own life. And finally, I would tell individuals who are dealing with anger, don't be afraid to turn the other cheek. Don't be afraid to walk away. Just because you're angry does not mean you have to fight. Just because you're angry doesn't mean you have to bulge your fist and swing it. Just because you're angry does not mean you have to pick up a weapon to solve and resolve your anger. There are other ways to deal with your anger towards anything and anyone. I'm very angry about what has happened to Ahmaud Arbery. But am I going to pick up a weapon? No. What I'm going to do is continue to be on panels like this, discuss with other African American males and young men about their anger issues, about what's going on in society, and to teach them how to live and navigate during a time in life when we are being gunned down and hunted like animals. But I don't want black men to pick up weapons and go in the streets and begin to shoot and become vigilantes. There's an appropriate way to deal with the anger, and I want to teach them how to deal with it. Think about their consequences. Use their words and not weapons, and don't be afraid to turn the other cheek or to walk away when you find yourself extremely angry. Go cool off. Go sit down in the corner. Go sit down and pray. Go sit down and meditate. Go sit down and gather yourself, and then come back and revisit the situation when you're a lot calmer, when you're a lot cooler. That way, calm heads and calm tempers can prevail.
What an awesome way to end this conversation. I want to thank everybody for tuning in, and just remember to share this out, and we'll continue to get better at this, but we are having a real-time conversation. So, you know, I love the fact that we had teenagers, 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds, white, black, lawyers, doctors, police officers, pastors, all having this conversation because it impacts all of us. And so, again, we want to thank you all for tuning in
with us. Remember to share this out. And remember, like, man, this is not over. We got a long way to go. We have a lot of work to do. But I think having healthy forums where we conversating and talking through these issues can make a big difference. So thank you all so much. And everybody have a great evening.